A boy is the weakest in his village and no one takes him seriously. However, he decides to leave his village to pursue his dream of being a soldier and enrolls in the military academy in a distant city. It turns out that there he is extremely strong and defeats the most dangerous monsters with a flick. But what if he was the weakest in his village? Watch until the end and you'll find out. The story begins with our protagonist Lloyd trying to catch a rabbit. He throws himself on top of the animal that escapes and even beats him up. He starts crying sad for having failed, but his brother appears on top of a tree with the rabbit in his hand, showing that he captured him. Lloyd runs to hug him, happy that he has returned. His brother went outside the village and he asks what the outside world was like, and he, seeing that Lloyd was interested in the outside world, gives him a book as a souvenir for him. The scene cuts to a long time later, showing Lloyd arriving in another city. He knocks on the door of a strange house, and when he enters he sees a woman. He reveals that he is looking for a witch called Marie, and she asks him a riddle, saying that since ancient times people see witches to fulfill wishes. However, she says that to have his wish come true he would need to sacrifice some. He just replies that his name is Lloyd and he is in town to become a soldier, and says he would stay with her for a few days, but she gets angry, saying that she is a witch and not an innkeeper, almost expelling him. However, after he says that he came from Kunlun, she does not expel him. She makes a face of fear and anger when hearing that the name of the village master is Alka, and the reason is simple. Alka is her master, and she is scared shitless of her, as you can see in this scene where Alka through a hologram asks her to take care of Lloyd. However, as soon as she Marie leaves and starts calling her grandma Loline, cursing her until she shows up in person and punishes her for talking like that by putting a curse on her where little bad things would happen throughout the day, like stub your finger on the corner of the sofa. I already feel pain just thinking about it. She falls asleep, and when she wakes up she sees that Lloyd has made breakfast, which is more like lunch. They talk where Lloyd reveals that his dream is to be a soldier despite being the weakest in his village, not being able to fish or carry firewood for example, but he wanted to be a soldier as well as a legendary hero that he admires. One day he was, however, he was worried about the test of resistance in combat, saying that his stamina was bad because it took him 6 whole days to get there from Kunlun, but Marie says he came fast by train. However, he says he came running, and she almost falls out of her chair when she hears that. She asks if he faced monsters in the way, and he replies no, he just found some animals like giant insects and fire-breathing lizards. And once again Marie almost falls out of her chair, saying that these are strong monsters, but Lloyd doesn't believe it. The scene cuts with him getting to know the center of the city. The scene cuts with a suspicious girl wearing a hood bumping into someone who came to take the admission test, and this boy recognizes her and calls her the Princess of the Belt, saying that the rumors were true about her applying to the academy. But she ignores him, and he says that she is tarnishing the reputation of the nobles in the city. She goes to a dark alley to be alone, and there a giant locust attacks her and leaves her in a difficult situation. She thought that was the end of her, but not. Why? Soon after Lloyd appears and with a kick finishes the grasshopper, in addition to catching it and throwing it away without effort. He, thinking that monster was a mere insect, says that there were many insects over there and helps this girl to get up. In addition to cleaning her face with a tissue, she introduces herself saying her name is Celine, and he introduces himself saying his name is Lloyd, and then leaves. The scene cuts with her at home while remembering this boy. Suddenly she remembers from her past where people always judged and mocked her for the curse she had, where a belt was always tied around her head, and she remembers about a priest telling her that one day someone powerful would come along and lift her curse, and from then on she always tried to believe those words. However, she says it was all in vain, and while crying she says she would rip that belt off her even if her skin went with it, but the moment she tries the belt just comes off, and she imagined it was Lloyd, and it really was, because that handkerchief had a rune that broke any curse. The scene cuts with 2 soldiers talking about this year, one of them having brought a lot of candidates to become soldiers. However, they say that bringing a mercenary was too much risky, while showing a girl named Riho. The scene cuts with her sitting next to Lloyd and scared to death of him because he has a powerful aura. He asks her a question and she takes a combat position at the time by instinct. Then he introduces herself saying her name is Lloyd, and she replies her name is Riho. They don't even talk much because Celine appears there pushing Riho to talk to Lloyd while making a crazy face, clearly in love with him, and clearly she is super jealous of him. That she takes Riho by the neck and asks Lloyd who she was, and Riho doesn't understand anything. However, she, seeing the two together, says that this could be an opportunity to earn money, and the scene cuts with Lloyd preparing to do the combat test that was to hit an iron doll with any weapon he wanted. The scene cuts with the students who passed the class, and everyone notices that Lloyd was not there. Both the 2 girls and the military man who was watching him called Meltfan were desperately looking for Lloyd, wondering if he had not passed the test. The scene cuts with Lloyd walking down the street sad for having failed the exam and saying that it was not a surprise that he had failed, but even so he expected more of himself. As he walked he passes a mural with a vacancy for a cook in a restaurant, and a giant grasshopper appears by surprise to attack him, but with a single flick he defeats him again. He goes to that restaurant where he saw the advertisement, and when he gets there the manager attacks him, but he dodges with incredible speed. He apologizes saying that he didn't want to cause problems and explains that he came for the job vacancy. The manager says that he instinctively attacked him because of his monstrous aura and suspects that he was sent there by the royal court and was a mercenary or something. Lloyd says that he could cook and clean, and the manager understands something else already getting ready to be attacked, but however Lloyd just goes to the kitchen and starts cooking a risotto. He explains that he failed the academy exam, but he didn't want to go back to his village hands empty, so I wanted to work there until I could try again the following year, but the manager still thought he was lying and was an enemy. The scene cuts with the military seeing Lloyd's answers with the girls and seeing that he just made some doodles like answer. However, a military woman called Colin notices that they were not just scribbles but ancient runes. She asks where this Lloyd was, but they answer that they don't know. Then Colin asks Meltfan if he found out who did Lloyd's interview, and he answers yes, and found out that during the interview Lloyd said that his only magic was to invoke rain, which didn't seem like a big deal, but Colin says it's impressive and only someone who has knowledge of ancient runes could do that. Besides, the girls think that was a lie and he managed to do more than just that. The scene cuts with the manager of the restaurant saying that Lloyd's food was delicious and finally believing that he just wanted a job. In fact, he is the owner and not the manager. He gives Lloyd the job, and the scene cuts with him coming home and telling Marie and Alka that he failed, but he wanted to try again next year, so he asks Marie and Alka permission to stay there longer time, and they allow it. After that he goes to make dinner and Alka gets all excited. So Marie asks if since she has so much energy she couldn't save the kingdom, and explains the situation, saying that the king of the rival kingdom has become a great advocate of war, and the one who controls the king would probably declare war at the next national festival of foundations, and many high-ranking army officials were invited to the festival, so it would be the perfect opportunity to avoid a war. But Alka says that Kunlun residents only interfere in the rest of the world, and a threat beyond humanity appears like a demon king or something, and says he couldn't help them with this, and also asks her to leave Lloyd away from this matter if he doesn't take him back to Kunlun. The scene cut to Riho and Meltfan talking at the restaurant where Lloyd is working. They didn't know where he was, and Riho tells Meltfan to relax because Celine was after Lloyd. Meanwhile, they should focus on finding the missing princess of the kingdom, a mission they received from the academy, and as soon as they found it they would ask Lloyd to enter the academy as a reward. He notes that the restaurant was crowded and very clean, which was rare because no one went there and did not know why, but soon after the Lloyd appears there telling the boss that a customer's dish was ready. What a coincidence, huh? Meltfan then talks to the boss asking if he has any idea what he is capable of doing, and the boss says yes, and that he doesn't understand how a warrior of that level could have failed the academy entrance exam. Then Lloyd goes to take out the garbage and sees another gigantic grasshopper over there, throwing it away as usual. He sees Marie entering a street and wonders if she was shopping. Then he sees some gym students commenting on a fight happening nearby and going to the place. This fight was between Celine and that slacker who was scolding her for pulling the chest hair of a random extra who lied about having seen Lloyd. He once again says that she only causes problems, and the two start to fight. He attacks her but is defended not by Lloyd but by her belt that defends this guy's blow. Then Lloyd appears there saying she heard about a fight, and she goes crazy for Lloyd when she sees him. Then they all get there and Celine says that Lloyd was going to fight the noble named Alan instead, as an opportunity to see Lloyd in action. Colin and Meltfan encourage the fight, and Alan imagines that the military wanted to see his powers in action. Little did he know that it's the opposite. Lloyd says he's too weak, so Alan says he'd let him punch him in the face to start with an advantage, and the fight starts with Lloyd giving this punch that almost hits Alan, and you can be sure that if hit this guy would go base right away, but not because Marie appears right away with a wind spell and takes Lloyd away from. Lloyd thanks her for having her safe, thinking he would be defeated by Alan. He says he would do anything to reward her, and she is delighted with his cute. After their conversation he leaves, and his boss named Chrome appears there, and when he sees Marie he says that it's been a while since they've seen each other. She replies that yes, and he tells a little about himself, saying that after losing the princess he withdrew from the royal guard and kept a low profile profile as the owner of a restaurant. In the city, however, he reveals that he was looking for her and tried to find out what made the king change. She replies that the international summit will take place on the third day of the festival and the culprit for everything would surely manipulate the king and declare war on the neighboring kingdom, and says that they had to stop this somehow, so I needed his help. The scene cuts with Colin praising Meltfan for working so hard to stop the war. He explains that his village was attacked by the neighboring kingdom in his childhood, so I didn't want to allow that to happen again. The scene cuts with Celine and Riho walking to Marie's house looking for her to help them find the missing princess, all so that Lloyd could enter the academy. When knocking on the door, who he answers them is Lloyd himself, and they are surprised to discover that he lived with the wit. Lloyd warns them that they wanted information, and they are very direct, saying that they were on a mission and asking if they knew the girl in the image, but at the same time see the picture. Marie says she doesn't work tracking princesses, but Riho is weird because she never said the girl in the picture was a princess. She realizes that Marie was hiding something besides that. Riho notes that she looked like the girl in the picture. When asking how long she lived there, Marie answers 2 years, and Celine starts crying saying she knows the truth. And with her knowing the truth, Marie decides to reveal who she was, and the two reveal the truth at the same time. Marie speaks, "I'm the princess," but Celine says, "You're Lloyd's wife, aren't you?" Celine didn't know anything, lol. And Riho says they needed to find the princess for Lloyd to be placed in the academy, and seeing that they were doing it for Lloyd, she decides to exchange information with them. She wanted information about the military in the castle and the state of the king, anything that could help save the kingdom, but before the information, Riho asks who she really was, and when she was going to reveal her identity, Lloyd gets in saying he knows who she was. "Oh good thing." Lloyd lets the girl say, "My goodness. Anyway, let's continue." Lloyd says that she is a hero who has been protecting the city in secret, and she doesn't understand anything but decides to pretend that she does. He asks her to leave him help her, but she says he wasn't strong enough and would only disturb her. Hearing that, Lloyd leaves, and she finally sees herself free to tell the truth. She asks for help from the girls to help her eliminate those who were manipulating the royal family, and reveals herself to be the missing princess of the kingdom called Maria. Riho complains that she said those things to Lloyd, but she explains that she cannot let him get involved because he is from the village of Kunlun, and the people of that village, despite being very strong, they cannot get involved in human conflicts. If Lloyd got involved, he would be taken back to the village of Kunlun and his dream of being a soldier would be destroyed. She explains that everyone in the city is looking for the princess that she is, and she imagines that someone wants to find her to stop the kingdom from using her as a way to negotiate peace or something. She asks for their help and they agree to help her. The scene cuts with Lloyd and Alka at a festival. She speaks in thought that staying out of what is happening must be difficult for Lloyd, who has a high sense of justice, but decides to try to cheer him up with a joke, but soon after the festival is attacked by a legion of locusts, and the scene cuts with Lloyd's boss, Chrome, talking to the king and asking for his reinstatement in the army. Meltfan says that the king has already received his appeal and he should go home and wait for his answer. However, he reveals that found the princess of the kingdom and says that she and some trusted friends are trying to find who cursed the king to start a war with the neighboring empire, and discovered that the suspected culprit left telling street thugs to bring the princess alive or dead. In addition, he spoke a sentence that only Meltfan would say, showing that he was the culprit. Meltfan reveals himself to be the culprit, and soon after the girls along with Marie appear there. An aura begins to come out of the king, who plays Meltfan away and says that he was manipulating him so he could free him, and reveals that he was the one who sent humans to attack his village when he was a child to generate anger against the royal family. Then he transforms Meltfan in a monster, and Chrome, Selena and Riho are in charge of stopping it, while Marie would have to free the king. She arrives in the royal room and tells the monster that she would take him out of her father. Then she attacks him with several spells, but ends up being distracted for a moment when he pretends to have returned to being his father, and uses this moment of distraction to knock her down. She was about to be defeated, but she says that if she died, she couldn't apologize to Lloyd for the who told him, so she gets up, but the king says it was useless because soon the whole kingdom would be dominated by him, who reveals himself to be a demon king. The episode continues with Lloyd defeating all the locusts with one blow. Then Marie starts to rage in front of the demon lord, mad that he didn't warn her that it was one before, so Kunlun's people could have helped. She leaves running away wanting to warn them, and the demon lord runs after her without understanding anything. Lloyd finds Alana hiding in fear of the monsters and encourages him to fight. After leaving, Alan finally manages to defeat a monster alone, and looking up at him sees a giant magic circle that belonged to Alka, who, having found out about the demon lord, decides to help by ending all the locusts in the city. Then the girls, along with Chrome, who were fighting Meltfan, were at a disadvantage, so Celine is holding the Meltfan with his belt that basically automatically defends her from any attack, and Riho takes the opportunity to get Lloyd and bring him there. After bringing him, he easily defeats Meltfan while he thought he was in costume. Then Marie, who was running away from Demon Lord, appears there along with the Demon Lord, but taking advantage of Lloyd's innocence, she says that she defeated the Demon Lord, but however someone dressed up as a king and was annoying her besides being all dirty, and asks Lloyd to use the magic cloth of him to clean the guy. Lloyd, wanting to help, uses his ancient rune on the cloth and passes it on the demon lord's face, thus making him leave the king. So the situation is resolved and Chrome returns to his position as an officer. In the army, Colin asks about Meltfan and he replies that he was sent to Kunlun to do a job there, and there he discovers that Alka was the person who distributed wheat in his village in the famine period, and she did this in all continents. The scene cuts with Alka at Marie's house asking if she would go back to the castle, but she says no because she had gotten used to this life. Then Lloyd appears there in uniform, making Alka die of cuteness. Then Celine and Riho appear there to see Lloyd, and Alka, when seeing Celine's belt, says that this is a Kunlun relic, a belt that protects its user against all evil. Then even Alan appears there, and Lloyd says that Alan is the reason for he has been accepted into the academy. The episode ends with Marie tired of all the noise of having everyone talking at the same time and tells Alka to go back to her village, in addition to sending Lloyd, Alan, and the girls to go to the academy. And so ends part 1 of the summary of Tatoeba Last Dungeon. If you liked it and want part 2, then you already know what to do. Comment a lot and leave your like that. Depending on the feedback, I will continue the story.